Erica Jensen, hi.
Hi.
We were just talking before we pressed play about how it's been so long since we've physically seen each other. And obviously, we're not even in the
Mhm,
same room here, but just like
mhm.
what time has done with this whole strange world that we're currently living in. And
Yeah,
it's
it's
just,
amazing.
it's wild. It's lovely to see a fellow bouncy curled human
Yeah.
across the screen. For anybody who does not know who are you today?
Oh, well, today I'm Erica Jensen, and I am a casting director and an acting teacher and a mom.
Love.
I think, I think that one of my big things right now is, uh, just a constant, like, obsession with my child, who
Hmm.
is, I mean, I think I've always been obsessed, but, a little more lately because she's in middle school, and I
Oh.
think we can all kind of remember what being in middle school was
Oh.
like, and, um, and so I'm just yeah, so I'm so I think about her being in middle school all the time,
Yeah.
and,
Are
like,
you
what that
starting
was
to, like,
like, and
become friends with her? Is it at that point, or is it feeling like the middle school contentious, like, you don't know anything because now I'm an adult middle school?
yeah, it's kind of both. It's like
Okay.
we're very close, and she's we're friends, at the same time,
Mhm.
um, she tells me that I don't know anything. She also
Yeah.
tells me I'm not cool,
Yeah.
and, um, and that's interesting.
Yeah. It definitely puts it in perspective and
It
probably
puts
keeps
it
you on your
all in
toes.
perspective, yeah. Yeah, totally. I'm like, "But I am kind of cool. I don't know."
Yeah. No, if you asked any of your peers, would be like, "No, Erica's pretty cool. You actually have a really
Ye
cool mom." And she'd be like, "No, I don't."
yeah.
But then maybe one day
No,
she'd
I
be like,
don't,
"No, my
yeah.
mom's really cool, though." I get it. I
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah, I
My
think maybe one day she'll know that I'm cool.
Oh, 100%, 100%. I
But
even think about
right now, there's no yeah.
oh, yeah.
Mhm.
No, like, me as a middle
Mhm.
schooler one day was like, "I love my mom," and the next day is like, "I can't be here," just, like, the full spectrum of emotion, so if you can
Yeah.
make it through that, then, you're Gucci, really. Um,
Yeah, I know. It's
I
nutty.
love it. I love it. Well, thank you for sharing about that part of yourself. I feel like you probably don't get
Mhm.
to chat much about your home life in a space like this when people are, like, bringing you on to talk probably mostly about what you do as a job, so thank you for
Right, right,
sharing.
right. Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. I would love to just like talk about parent stuff.
I mean, we could.
But I
The
yeah.
balance is real, and people I think it's
Yeah.
relevant, if that's
Yeah,
something you
yeah,
wanna
I think that
share.
well, I think it's well, as far as it pertains to what, the entertainment world that we both live in, I think that I will say that one thing that the pandemic has done for us that's not um, the worst is maybe making it easier for parents to audition
Mhm.
and for parents to go out of town and uh, having Zoom as an option to be able to audition, so you don't have to worry about childcare.
Yeah.
I think that's something that should that we can look at as a big change
Yeah.
in our industry that I think is for that can maybe fall into the pro category,
Mhm.
where we have so many where I feel like we have a lot of cons, feeling not great feelings about our current state of how we audition,
Yeah.
how things have changed a lot. I know that people have a lot of feelings about not coming in person and
Mhm.
making self tapes, and um, I do want to offer the one thing that's really good for parents
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a real
is
thing.
is
It's a
real.
real
Yeah,
thing.
you save money and save on travel and save on being away from your child. Maybe sometimes you do want to be away from your kid, but at the same time, it's like having the option to like you don't
Yeah.
have to turn down an audition because you can do it on Zoom or you can
Yeah.
continue to yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and by extension, also anybody who doesn't have, a family unit, even just for oneself to have the flexibility of perhaps
Hmm.
visiting family or friends,
Right.
or being able to
Mhm.
be more remote with a job that isn't, perhaps directly in the industry, or something that allows you to stay afloat, or if you're on vacation. Like, there's some things
Yeah.
that definitely in that respect have really opened up possibility for location, at least initially, which I do see the pro of that.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
also for sure, like, the flip side of the frustration of wanting to be felt in a room, but I'm sure we'll go
Mhm.
down that path
Yeah, yeah,
shortly.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I'm curious if you're cool to just tell us a little bit of a background as to how you found yourself, casting, and what drew you to that as, your primary profession.
Well, I was an actor. I studied to be an actor. I have an MFA in acting, and I came to New York for that purpose.
Mhm,
And I ended up in an internship at a theater called Playwrights Horizons,
mhm.
off-Broadway theater here in New York City. And I ended up an intern in the casting office, which is where I met James Calleri and Elaine Aldaffer. I And that was the first time I'd ever even heard of casting or knew what that was. When I was in grad school, I didn't know the relationship between casting directors and agents. I didn't even realize casting was a job.
Yeah.
Um, so when I got the internship in the casting office at Playwrights Horizons, it just opened up another world and opened
Yeah.
up a whole path that I never even considered.
Did they just put
And
you
I
there, or were you like, "I'm applying to playwrights and to
I
be in an internship,"
applied,
and
yeah,
then
I
okay.
applied to do an internship. Uh, and they have a really good internship program. They had interns in casting and in the literary department, and we were right next to each other, which was really fun.
Amazing.
The playwright Jordan Harrison, I don't know if you're,
Mhm.
but
Yep.
he was an intern at the same time that I was,
So
and
cool.
so he was deciding like what he was going to do with his life, if he was going to go to film school, if he was going to be a playwright, and I think he chose wisely. He's
Yeah.
doing really well.
Clearly.
He's doing great. But yeah, we were really good friends because we were interning together at Playwrights Horizons.
Got it.
Again, which was just such a great. It was so. It was a really really interesting experience being there because I got to um, um, work with people that I had studied about, like read about in school when I was in grad school. So like my very first day of my internship, James and Elaine were casting a Christopher Durang play,
Mhm.
and and he was there. He was there in the audition, and the actors who were coming in were people that I recognized from television
Yeah.
and soap operas, and like it was and so it was just really eye opening to see that uh, what we see like the actors we see on television also do theater, and
Mhm.
uh, people that I was familiar with in this one area, learning that their world as actors was much bigger
Yeah.
than I knew about, and it was just really exciting to be in auditions that way. And as I stayed at Playwrights Horizons, um, reading new plays and watching how plays were developed and watching how the casting process influenced a play's development, and working with directors and writers, and that collaboration, how those and uh, learning like what the job of casting is, was so fascinating to me. And
Mhm.
I thought that um, if it didn't work out with me as an actor, then that it would be great to pursue casting. And then that's what happened. I ended up pursuing casting, and I don't, and I've never missed being an actor. It's just been great to be
Were
a
you
casting director.
simultaneously, while you were interning there, were you still auditioning, or were you kinda like, "You know what, let me focus in on this casting internship, see how this goes. I'll probably go back and start to audition once the internship finishes,"
Mhm.
and that was kind of the expectation? Or was it like, were you able split your time? How are you doing that?
Yeah, my internship was a school year, so it was like
Okay.
2 semesters, and, I, would dabble in I would see, auditions in backstage, and
Mhm.
so occasionally I would go to an audition, and, just, just feel it out, see what it was like, and then, I, auditioned for a summer job at the Central Park Zoo. They were hiring actors
Of
um,
course.
to do the shows, the kids shows at the zoo,
Yeah.
and so I auditioned for that and I got it. Like I got cast as one of the I was hired as one of the actors and found a community of actors that way. It was really fun. We played with puppets and we sang songs and
Adorable.
and that was
Adorable.
like a summer yeah, that was like a summer job. And during that time, I that was at the end of my internship. And so during that time, I started pursuing more acting work and auditioning, and didn't find much success. I wasn't very good at auditioning. I was pretty terrible at it, actually.
Mm,
And Yeah, it felt very it just wasn't something it wasn't a skill that I had developed enough um in my um in my training. And It's something now, it's interesting now. I really When I teach, most of my teaching is focused on auditioning technique,
yeah.
because that's all actors do is audition.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Yeah. So that was a great learning experience for me, when I realized that I just wasn't very good at auditioning. And I also just didn't have like the drive that I saw a lot of actors who, when I was doing my internship, the actors who were coming in and auditioning, I could tell there was a difference between them, what they were doing, and what
Mm,
I was doing. Um, there was such For the ones who were like just so serious and committed, there was like such drive and ambition,
mhm.
that I just didn't have, or passion that I really just didn't have. And I was feeling, but I did feel passionately about casting. And
Right.
so when I had the opportunity to then move into casting full time, I took it. I was offered, James and Elaine got a TV show called Ed, and they
Okay.
needed an assistant. So they asked me if I would join them. And so then that's what happened. And then I've been casting ever since.
It's really I love hearing people's I guess you can call them like origin stories because it just explains so
Hmm.
much about it's kind of like when you it sounds so silly as a comparison, but it's kind of like when you meet your friend's parents for the first time and you're like, "Oh, so much about you now makes sense in, like, the best
Right.
way." It
Right. Right.
same thing when I hear people's, like, origin stories because it explains so much about, like, how they work and the way that they work. I feel like something that's so wonderful about the way that I've always felt you in a room is
Hmm.
and I didn't know your MFA background, if I'm being really
Hmm.
totally candid, and it
Hmm.
tracks.
Hmm.
You were an actor, and you've always
Hmm.
related to me and other fellow actors in a way that didn't feel it doesn't feel like you've never done that before. Like, you talk
Hmm.
with an understanding from a very personal perspective, and sometimes people just have that naturally, but now that I know, I'm like, "Oh, of course, duh." Like, for me, it just
Yeah.
makes a lot more sense with the way that you do your job and how you do your job in a very
Hmm.
beautiful way, so thank you for sharing that. Um,
Yeah.
I'd love to chat with you about just, like, maybe, like, the highlight reel of what you love about your job now in this current state of affairs, and then I wanna, like, kinda dive in and dissect some things about, like, where we are at like,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
industry with it all. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, what I love, I will just personally, what I love, and I know I can get more broad in just like casting in general. I'm going to start with like real specifics.
please. Yeah, I love a
I
specific.
love my partners. I love James
Mm,
Calleri and I love Paul Davis and I love how we work together. Um, James has been my mentor for my entire career, and just somebody that I have a lot of respect and admiration
Yeah.
for. I don't know that I would have continued had I not landed with him.
Mm,
And then Paul is just a really fantastic casting director
yeah.
that I also just really respect and admire. And I just think the three of us have created a wonderful work environment for ourselves, and I think our office is just different from other offices in a lot of
100%.
ways.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I love that about us. I love how much we love actors. I love
Yeah.
how much we respect um, the craft,
Mhm.
and how much we respect creative people. Um, I learned how to. I really learned how to. I know this is going to sound. It sounds kind of silly. Like you should just know how to treat people, but I learned how
Mm.
to treat actors. I really learned how to treat
Yeah.
actors. Like I learned, even though
Yeah.
I had been an actor myself, there was something about being an actor where, like, even in school, where I felt like no one knows, like, oh, you just accept, like,
Yeah.
being treated,
Yeah.
not, I don't want to say badly, but kind of badly.
Yes. No,
Like,
yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
100%.
Like what you're doing is not important somehow,
Yeah.
or it's like, or it's some kind of game.
Mhm.
Um,
Or there's so
you
many of
know,
you that it doesn't even
or there's
matter,
so
like,
many
how
of you
you
that it doesn't
feel, 'cause
matter how you
exactly. Mhm.
feel, or yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
Mhm.
And I learned how wrong that was when I started working with James and when I did my internship and watching him and Elaine Aldaffer, how they navigated a room and how they respected everyone. Um, I just learned how, no, this is important. And when someone comes in and they're sharing their work, they're sharing themselves, that needs attention and
Mm.
respect. And there needs to be um, a recognition of that it took time for that person to prepare
Yeah.
something and to do something, to give of themselves. And I
Yeah.
just think and I really think that's what makes us different.
100%. Also, there's a
That we've
collaboration between the 3 of you that I feel
Yeah.
perhaps people don't necessarily associate with casting directors, because so many of them say are their own, like, individuals who are
Mhm.
just hired by project, and or there's a large office, and it just feels like, again, there's like an individual.
Mhm.
It doesn't feel as collectively held. I feel like there is a collaboration that is so clear around the way you all
Mhm.
work and respect each other, and then that
Mhm.
also then feeds into the way you therefore respect the artists that come into your space. It's just this, like, respectful
Mhm.
feedback collaborative loop that's just really lovely. So,
Yeah.
I'm echoing that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I totally agree. I think we're all, and we're the three of us are just in each other's business all the time.
Yeah.
Even if, if I'm taking the lead on something, James and Paul know what's going on. And if Paul's taking the lead, we all know what's going on. Same with James. We all know what's going on with each other's, with all the projects.
Yeah.
And yeah, we always support each other, and we're good collaborators, I think. Um,
I love
yeah,
that. I love that.
yeah.
What about on
Mhm.
a more macro scale about
Yeah,
your job?
so about my job, yeah, let's see. Well, I love that my job involves attending showcases, discovering new people. Yeah, and then something that all casting directors do, making those discoveries and helping to launch careers. My favorite thing is always like giving someone their first job, like,
Yeah.
um, and then like seeing what happens after that, like how they grow and change and like where they go.
Mhm.
And That's always been a great joy, like to be able to be a part of someone's story.
Yeah.
Um, Even if it's about, even if, because I, plenty of actors that we've worked with and like, been the office that has given them their first job. Sometimes what happens is they learn that this isn't the thing for them, and they move on to like maybe being producer, or being a writer, or being a director, and watching that happen. I just ran into I was at a show and I ran into an actor that I cast in there was a summer play festival many, many years ago at that would happen at the Public Theater, and I cast him in in a play there. Like I think it was like one of his first plays ever, like right out of school.
Mm.
He was an undergrad at NYU, and now he's directing Christopher Abbott and Aubrey
On
Plaza
Plaza, yeah.
and Danny and the Deep Blue Sea. Like now he's doing that. And so it was just so things like that when I watch someone's like career go in places that maybe no they didn't think of originally,
Yeah.
and um, but I love that. I love what else? I do love the casting community, and connecting when we are able to, connecting with them and like hearing about like what other people are experiencing and doing, and
Yeah.
how we are working together to create more to create space for everyone.
Yeah. On the
Yeah.
flip side, what is
Yeah.
like a misnomer that people either have about what a casting director does, or more specifically your job, and or what is something that is just like a little bit frustrating that you are consistently combating, whether it's like because of the industry the way that it is, or just the state
Mhm.
of the world, or whatever?
Yeah. Let's see. That's a really good question. So our job as casting directors, it is not glamorous
Yeah.
in the least. I think that it is not glamorous the way we work, especially if you're an independent casting director. The way my office is, we kind of operate the same way that actors do. It's like we're always looking for the next job.
Mhm.
We're constantly fighting for recognition and credit and respect for what we do.
Yeah.
Like things like getting recognized the same way that scenic designers and lighting designers get
Or like an
recognized.
award, not that awards
Or
matter, but like even just a simple
yeah,
category. If we're
just
gonna
a simple,
award
yeah.
something else, then we should probably award the people that found the people that are doing the thing, but, yep,
That's
mhm.
right. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Fighting for things like that.
yeah,
It just and so it's not a glamorous job. It's also a job that we get hired to do all the time. Like people are always hiring us, and also without a full understanding of what it takes to do the job. Kind of
mhm.
similarly to being an actor, I think.
In what way?
Um I think that like I mean, actually, I think that more people understand what it takes to be an actor, but I do think that there's definitely like a thing where you don't fully understand like how much effort and energy is required to be a casting director, and then to not be honored or respected,
Yeah,
for getting like for example, like the New York Times very rarely lists like the casting director when they are noting a story, like when they're writing a story, um, and they commend the acting
yeah,
and like or
yeah,
in the cast. At the end of that story, they do not list the casting director, you
yeah.
know, and yeah, so things like that. Those are the things that sort of that bother me.
Yeah, it could weigh on you too, because it's like
Yeah.
you're putting all your time and energy and efforts and soul and passion
Mhm.
to deliver a product that you're being paid for, but b
Mhm.
something that that you've brought your stamp on. Like you've brought in these
Mhm.
people that you've built relationships with, or you've seen do certain things that will be really valuable to this thing. And so it's like it wouldn't the people who are in that room wouldn't necessarily have been there without you. And it's like to
Right.
not be
Mhm.
recognized for that can
Mhm.
weigh on you if it's happened over and over and over again. You've done this for years.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I
Mhm.
can imagine that doesn't feel great.
Right,
I
right.
just think it's important to name those things, because I think
Mhm.
there is it's a damned if you do and damned if you don't in some ways, but like
Mhm.
recognize that, oh, well, this casting director never calls me in and X, Y, and Z. Well,
Mhm.
also like let's take a step back and recognize larger pictures at play, or let's think about, well, it seems like maybe this office we create these stories, I think, so
Right.
many of us, to make sense of a industry that often doesn't make any sense, and
Mhm.
to recognize that it also doesn't make sense for other folks in the industry too. I
Mhm.
think it's a helpful reminder that like we're actually all in this together, trying to just
Yeah.
a lot of not making sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. like when I hear an actor tell me that, like, well, you've never brought me in, I have a couple of responses. Like one of my responses is take a look at what we're casting,
Mhm.
and if you find that there is something that you're right for, by all means, please contact us, and we can try to, we'll figure out how to have you audition. Um, I at the same, but I'm limited to like what projects we're working on, and
Yeah.
sometimes I'm not, not seeing like, you know, lots of people for, or it's just like very specific, like I'm not, you just have to think about like what is the office actually doing, and have you done enough to make yourself known to that office? It's really hard. There's so many casting directors, and it's
Yeah.
hard to like stay on top of that, and like, do you have relationships with that, with the people who are not calling you in? Have you made an effort to like meet them somehow, or and are you staying on top of like the research of like what they're doing, and
Yeah.
if they're actually looking for you right now?
Yeah. Well, I'm curious for
Mhm.
you and your office, what are the ways that you like either A, being kept in the loop by the folks who do know you and or the
Mhm.
folks who don't know you? How do you enjoy building those relationships with new people?
Yeah, let's see. I like to be I can't always attend things shows that I'm invited to, but I do really appreciate being invited. I
Mhm.
appreciate someone saying to me or sending me an email and saying, "I'm doing this reading on this day. If you can come, that would be great," or inviting me um, to a show. My schedule is usually a little nutty, so I can't always make things, but I do take note, and I like to know. And I think it's just an easy way to stay in touch with somebody is
Mhm.
when you have things going on and you want them to know. Or another thing that is that I try to be better about too is when I bring people into audition, and we've had like a callback process, say, I like to try to email actors after the callbacks to let them know how it went. I'm not always successful in getting that
Yeah.
done, but I try, and I also uh, like it when I hear from the actors who have auditioned. If I haven't reached out to say, hey, you had a great callback. Um, it's only because I just haven't had the time to
Mhm.
do it. If the actor wants to email me, that's fantastic, and ask me how they did. I love that because then I'm like, great. Then I can like
Interesting.
answer this email. Yeah. It helps like to keep our relationship going.
Yeah. That's such an
Um,
interesting thing that I haven't heard, frankly, many casting directors enjoy because, yeah, A, time is so precious and how much time do we have
mhm.
to respond, but I think that there's something about the it's not the ask, it's the, like, "Thank you for the callback. Like, if you have a
Yeah.
time to chat about it, I'd love to hear, like, how it landed," versus, like, "Why didn't you hire me and why aren't"
Yes.
there's, like, the
Yeah.
difference of the
Mhm.
curiosity around respecting your opinion because you were in the
Mhm.
room and
Mhm.
recognizing because you know more than we do on this other side of the table, like, what the actual need was, and perhaps we really did everything that we could have done, and they wanted a blonde and I am a brunette.
Right.
Like, and I would
Yeah.
never know that, and I sit
Mhm.
here spiraling around it. I love that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think the more you can, if you have representation, you can get that information through your representation. But I'm also very okay with people emailing me and asking me directly if there was something, like yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
If there's anything you want to share with me about my audition, asking that is totally fine with me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that.
Hmm.
And for folks who
Yeah.
have not met you,
Hmm.
and they want to be seen by your office, besides, or I guess initially, like, are you cool with the like, hey, I saw this breakdown. I actually am really right for this. You don't know who I am. Here is me emailing you and submitting. Is it,
Hmm.
if you have reps, push your reps and have them do it, or is it like, hey, I see that Eric is teaching this class. I need to take this class so that Erica knows me.
Mhm.
Like, what is the way for new folks to try to get in with you all?
Yeah, all 3 of those ways. Those are all great ways to get to know us and, have us get to know you, get to know the actor is by, if you see that we're teaching a class and the class sounds interesting, and like something you wanna do, I recommend that as
Mhm.
as an avenue. I also recommend if you see a breakdown and you feel like the description matches, to please email us and let us know. And if you have representation, that's a great way. Have your representation contact us. If The other thing that actors do that I think is smart is if you have a relationship with a writer or director, going through, asking them, and they will then contact us and say, I'd like to see Jennifer. Have a good relationship with her. She did a play for me when she was, last year,
Mhm.
so I'd like to see her for this as well. So that is also a great way to get it. And
Yeah.
then even if we don't know you, you're on our radar all of a sudden because you've been introduced to us through a director, writer, producer.
Yeah, I think we often
Mhm.
forget that this is a industry built on relationships, and
Mhm.
nothing speaks louder than somebody who is vouching for you truthfully and honestly because they actually have enjoyed working with you.
Right.
It's like the best form of a Yelp review. It's just like a person to person verification of like, cool, cool, cool.
Mhm.
This is a real human being, and we can speak on behalf
Mhm.
of A, their work ethic, but also B, like their human self, and you'll enjoy being around them or whatever it is. I
Mhm.
think that's a lovely reminder that, you know, perhaps if you're starting out and you don't necessarily have those casting director relationships, but you've done a lot of new works or you've done a lot of developments and you now have these relationships with other industry folks, they can also be of assistance for you in certain ways that perhaps we don't necessarily think about directly. Obviously, not like
Mhm.
overdoing it and, being a burden
Mhm.
in all of that. I would love to talk about we kinda talked about it in the beginning, but the self-tape era that we're in at the
Mhm.
moment. Obviously, as you said, there's a lot of feelings around,
Mhm.
"Is this better? Is it worse?" The fact remains it's gonna remain in some capacity, I think, forever.
Mhm.
But I'd love to unpack with you the do's and the don'ts and the this is cool, this is not, or these are the expectations, or these are the not, like just from your office, having watched and will continue to watch many a self tape, like
Mhm.
what is flying and what is not flying at the moment.
Yeah, well, let's see. I I think that the self-tape option or the Zoom option, like you said, it's not going away. Continuing. And the positives on my end, I think actors can go either way on this. But the positive for me um, is that I'm able to see more actors
Mhm.
in to be like in the like I can request more self tapes because we're not beholden to uh a limited amount of time like in a space
Yeah.
where we used to bring people in auditions. I would have to limit the number of people we would see because we only had a certain number of time in a space, and space costs money, and we would have to limit based on budgets, from like the theaters that we cast for, or even like TV shows. Uh, so it's expanded my world as a casting director, and the reach. I've been able to see actors work that maybe I wouldn't be able to see because of like having a limited amount of space,
Mhm.
audition space, and not being able to see like people, like who are newer, and taking risks that way. So I feel like I can take more risks
Mhm.
in our current space, which has been
Great.
really great for me as a casting director. And I think other casting directors would probably agree with that. Again, I'm not sure how actors always feel about that. I know that it can feel like, you're making a tape and just kind of throwing it into a void. You don't hear
Yeah.
anything. And that's frustrating. I can totally understand that because at least if you're in the room, you kind of get a feeling. You've seen a person, you've watched them react to your work. And so in that respect, I understand how it can be frustrating. Um, um, I watch every tape that comes in.
Say that
We all
louder
do.
for the
Like,
people in
I
the
know
back.
exactly. I watch every tape that comes in,
Yeah.
and so do my partners. We watch everything, and
In its entirety.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I feel like if we've got like you know, if we were asked somebody to make a tape, I feel like the least I can do is watch it.
I mean, no, I mean, I'm asking that kind of
And
rhetorically, though sometimes it does
yeah,
when you've sent out a bunch and you're like, "Oh, this is just a waste of my time." Like, you do get to that
yeah.
point with exactly what you're saying of, like, the lack of any kind of feedback. You're like,
Mhm.
feel like I'm just literally putting things at a wall, and the wall is a wall."
Yeah.
And so it's
Mhm.
lovely to just hear it, like, and confirm it. We all I think, again, we all conceptually know it. Like, why would somebody
Mhm.
ask for something that they don't want? Like,
Yeah.
you all have so much time. And if you've
Mhm.
even gotten the appointment, that's a win. And so if a casting director is asking for a tape that if they know the material is probably going to take 4 minutes, including your slate, that's 4 minutes times 80 people. Like, that's a
Mhm.
lot of minutes right there. I'm terrible at math. I'm an actor, but here, like, that's a lot of time. You
Mm.
wouldn't request
Yeah.
it of me if you didn't actually want to watch it. So I think just
Yeah.
like trusting that process a little bit and hearing you
Mhm.
say it is helpful for the reminder that, like, it is going somewhere to a person
It's
who
go
has
yeah.
a
It
job to
Mhm.
complete. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, 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 exactly. It's going somewhere, absolutely, and I would feel kind of foolish if I didn't watch someone's tape and then sent it to a direct like, fully, and then sent it to the director, and the director's like, "Oh, this they did something like," and come if they made a comment about something that the person did in their tape, if I wasn't aware of
yeah.
it, that would be really bad.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess it's more just
So
like if you, like, start watching a
mhm,
tape and you're like, like, I don't,
right.
it's like,
Yeah.
then the question is like, have
Mhm.
you watched it? But also at that
Have you
point, it's,
yeah.
what you're
Mhm.
looking for.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
it's a puzzle really too,
Mhm.
it's like you're trying to put a puzzle together, and these are the missing
Mhm.
pieces, and if you know that this is a corner piece and this person's the middle piece and that's not what you're looking for, then it's just not going to fit at that moment. But maybe at some point you are looking for the middle piece and not the corner piece, and then it is.
Right, right, right.
um what about on, like, the technical part of it? What in self
Mhm.
tapes really works for you lighting wise and sound wise and backgrounds and microphones or not, or cameras and props, and
Mhm.
what doesn't? What is working, what does not?
I stole this, from, somebody in LA. I was on a panel way in the beginning of in the shutdown when we were just
Mhm.
when all we were doing was panels and talking, and
Yeah.
it was just Zoom all the time. It was just, like, constant panels.
Doesn't that
Um,
feel like it feels like years ago, and it was
ugh,
years ago, but it also feels like 2 days ago, and I, like,
yeah.
remember it's just a yep. Anyway, panels.
Yeah, 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 panels, oh, yeah. So I was on a panel and a casting director from LA was talking about self-tapes and what they liked, and I just thought this was, like, the easiest, smartest advice. It was like, the lighting is, you're lit well enough where I can see the color of your eyes, um, and the sound quality is good enough that I can hear you, and I can hear you over your reader. Your voice is the dominant voice in the tape, and I've just stuck with that, and that's fine with me. If I can see you and I can hear you, great. Um, if that means that you need to invest in a sort of lighting kit or something because the lighting in your house isn't great, or I think you have to just take into consideration what you have in your home already. If something needs to be boosted, then boost it, because it's an investment, but it's also you're going to be making tapes. Hopefully you're going to be asked to do that, and if that means that you just need to, like, the area in your house where you want to put your tape, put yourself on tape, the lighting's not great. Okay, I need to get some better lighting. My computer doesn't pick up sound the way I'd like it to, or so maybe I need to get an external microphone, or maybe my phone isn't recording the way I want to, so I'm just going to get an external microphone for my phone. Um, and those things, it doesn't have to cost a ton of money. I think you can probably invest in some equipment that doesn't cost a ton of money. I think you can ask friends at this point. I
Mhm.
think there's a lot of people with setups that they feel good about, that you can talk to. Probably have a friend who um, um, has done that. And if you want to have a screen, some kind of background, blue or gray or green, whatever, you can. It's not required. In my mind, it's not required. You also don't have to feel like you have to be on a set.
Mhm.
Um, I think that props are great. Props can be very grounding and be helpful. And you can use props. Uh, and at the same time, you do not have to be on a set.
Yeah.
If the scene takes place in a kitchen, don't feel like you have to set yourself in the kitchen. Don't feel like you have to set yourself,
Just becomes a cooking
whatever it is.
show. Somebody's like, "I thought
Yeah,
that
yeah,
we were
yeah, yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
making dinner." I
But
don't. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it doesn't have to become a cooking show. um, so I would also offer to maybe treat it as much as you can, like you're entering, like you are going into a room and seeing people. I know that there are some actors who need to maybe leave their homes in order to do their self tapes because it's too comfortable at home. And so if you have somewhere that you like to go where you can make a tape, um, then go for it. But I'm the only thing I encourage is to do what makes you feel like you're going to do your best work.
Mhm.
Um, I'm not encouraging spending a ton of money. If spending a ton of money makes you feel good
Yeah.
about, like, it makes you feel like you did your best work, then great, then go for it. Um, but not because I told you to do that or anybody else told you to do that.
Yeah.
If it makes you feel good to go have somebody else do the tape for you, like you go to a space and they record the tape because you feel like technically you're just not up to speed, or you don't want to deal with any of that because like you want to focus on doing the work, and that it's hard for you to navigate both of those things, and you know that about yourself, then go to that place where you feel
Yeah.
comfortable and somebody's going to help you out.
Yeah. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on social media presences or people's websites being
Hmm.
found on the interwebs?
Yeah, I love it when an actor has a website, because and that they're easy to find. Please be easy to find. I'm having a hard time finding somebody right now, in fact,
Yeah.
because I Googled them and like they don't seem to have a website, or they don't seem to be easy to contact. They don't seem to have like an actors access page, or and that can be very frustrating. So I say, please be accessible
Yeah.
in some way.
On the
Um,
website, do you like specific things? Is there like a are you cool with just like a photo, an email, and a coming soon? Or is it more like you
yeah,
want to see some reels and you want to see the resume and you want it like what exactly is your ideal website if you had to create your bullet point?
I think if you don't want to publish your contact information, then having a contact me page, totally great and fine. Um, I think if you have material that you feel proud of and that shows you off, please make that available on your website. If you have some photos that you want to publish from, like still photos from productions that you've been in, go for it. If your resume is there, the basics for me are headshot and resume, and a way to contact you. If it's just the comfort of having like a contact page because you don't want your contact information out, um, I totally respect that, and that's fine as long as I can send you a message and you get back to me. Great.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but those are just the three basic things,
Cool.
and everything else is cake.
Great. If you
Yeah.
are casting a project and somebody has a large social media following versus somebody who doesn't,
Hmm.
what happens?
This is a great question, and I'll tell you what I think is important to understand is it takes time to have a social media presence.
Mhm.
you don't, when you're first starting out, getting caught up in like, how many followers do I have before you've done anything to follow is is not the way your brain should be going. Like,
Yeah.
your first thought should be about, okay, how do I want to look on social media as somebody who's just starting out, like, what is my social media about before I've done anything?
Mhm.
Um, and so your focus should be more about, if you haven't acquired if you have acquired representation, how are you going to work with your agent or manager? Um, what are the things that you like that you want to be seen for? How are you going to start building relationships? How am I going to start down this path? What classes am I going to take? What museums am I going to visit? What things am
Yeah.
I going to do for my mental health, to keep myself mentally um, healthy? How is my what's my social life going to look like? What's my job going to be like? How am I going to pay my bills while I'm auditioning? And so that's where you need to start before you get into like social media presence, because the times when we talk about social media presence are when we're casting Broadway, and we're talking about people who are borderline famous.
Mhm.
Like, who are those people who have like a big following on social media, that I can put on stage, that are going to sell tickets. You
Yeah.
know, that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about like somebody who's just out of school who hasn't. We'll talk about them to understudy,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, something like that. But getting getting a little obsessed with like having a following on social media before you've actually honed in on like what you want to do
Yeah. Yeah.
and how you
Has
want
it
to.
ever, like, been the deciding factor, though? Like, let's say you have somebody who is arguably an influencer and they've really figured out
Hmm.
their social media. Arguably, they've become really well known on TikTok and blown up in that kinda
Hmm.
way, or
Yeah.
somebody who doesn't care as much about the social media and is really honed in on their craft and, but one can really sell your tickets and one could probably act it better. Is that a
Yeah.
thing that is talked about in rooms?
um yes, I'm sure that it is. It's always going to be the case that we're always, especially when you're talking about Broadway, um you always have to think about selling tickets. It always has to there when you're talking about commercial. I'm just going to talk about theater right now,
Yeah.
but like when you're talking about commercial theater, you have to think about ticket sales. Maybe you have that slot of the person who can be like the bigger draw,
Mhm.
um, and then you have the slot of the person who is going to maybe be the stronger actor.
Mhm.
Um, Hopefully, it all merges together. Hopefully you
Yeah.
have like it's the same. And I think it also just depends on what it is and what you're casting and
I
what
think that's
what
the
it looks
fear
like.
though, right? I know at least, like,
Yeah.
amongst friends, it's like, "God, if I had had more followers, then maybe I would be booking more because I'd be
Mhm.
viewed as somebody who is ingrained marketing in addition to
Mhm.
being talented versus like,
Right,
ugh, I
right.
hate social media and I'm really bothered that this has to be part of my job now because I just want to do the
Mhm.
thing. But now I know I'm losing out to people who have larger social media followings because they figured it out or like it more. And I
Yeah.
guess the fear around it having to be now another thing that people need to focus on in order for them
Yeah.
to be booking, I don't have the answer to that, and I guess that's what I'm asking for.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I know what I know what you're asking, and
Yeah.
I'm also a little bit like, I want to say, what do I want to say? I think when you have like a social media presence and you're highlighting something you're really good at, or something you are passionate about, um, that can draw attention to you, um, in a way that feels more organic and more sincere, rather than what can I do? Like, oh my God, I'm not. I don't have enough of a following, no one's
Yeah.
paying attention to me. And I know you're talking about more than just, like, how to get a job. I know it's, like, kind of like a broader
Yeah.
I
It's a
completely know what
fear.
you're
It's a
it's a
fear
fear,
thing,
yeah,
100%, just because, like, the rate at which TikTok specifically, but social media is blowing up and it's a tool, but then there
mhm,
are people, myself included in many respects, that are, like, averse to using
yeah,
it in that way because it's not why we became artists. We became
mhm,
artists to, like, tell the stories, and now it's like, "Okay, well, now how do I tell my own story?" Now all of a sudden I have to be public about my own personal life, or I have to be
yeah,
communicating things in an interesting way that is compelling for people to find me interested. It's like there's something
mhm.
about that that feels so antithetical to like why so many of us got into it to begin with. And I know we're not going to like solve it here, but I guess I don't know if like I don't want to beat a dead
Well,
horse
do you
either.
think no, 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 do you think, this is what what makes me kind of what I a change that like, what you're talking about is a change that I'm not fully comfortable with, is feeling like there aren't really any, stars anymore. It's kind
Yeah,
of like
you can
it
self-make.
just you can just self-make, and that feels kind of I don't know, I don't love it.
Same. No, I think
I
that's like
don't
really what
I
I'm
don't
getting at. It's
yeah, 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 it just feels kind of I don't have the answer,
yeah.
but I know that I don't, I I don't know, I don't, all this, like, being able to just get attention for or become, like, really popular for the type of shoes you wear or, like, I don't know, like, what
Yeah, I know, and
and
somehow
it's
that now
very
correlates to you booking a part.
yeah,
Like
booking and it's very frustrating, yeah, I understand what you're talking about, and I
yeah.
feel in that,
But should we just
I
accept
feel
that
like
this is kind of the reality and that is a thing that, we just need to accept? Like, is that what or should we are those of us who are not as drawn to that kind of presence just trust?
I still believe that talent rises
Yeah.
and there is a lot of space still for, I'm not casting I know this is not glamorous at all. I know that it's not like, I'm not casting influencers at Yale Rep.
Yeah. Great.
I mean, I know that that's not like, I know that that's not like the big money and the big, but
No, people know
I
Yale Rep.
still
It's it people know
yeah,
it. Yeah.
and those so I'm not even having those conversations on
Great.
like the level on with the companies that I work for. We're not
Great.
having those
Then
conversations.
that's
Yeah.
then that's a helpful step that we're not hearing it across. I guess it's just when it comes
Mhm.
to the real commercial part of the industry, that is
Yeah.
now a bit more of the conversation, and we all just kind of need to figure out how we feel comfortable with that for ourselves, I think is maybe where we sit. Is that it? Just get comfy and decide and mosey along.
I know. Yeah, I guess so. It's kind of a weird it does feel change and like all yeah. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
Anyway, let me get us out of that little hole. I know our
Yeah.
time is winding down. Is there anything else that's on your heart that you feel, an actor or a performer or somebody who might be coming through your doors at some point, um,
Mhm.
it would be helpful for them to know directly from you that we did not talk about?
Mm, good question. I I don't know. I think that maybe just know that we're always rooting for you.
Mhm.
That we're always hoping for you to do your best work. We're always rooting. Yeah, 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 yeah.
I love that.
And yeah, and also to listen to this podcast. It's really great.
Thank you. Thank you. Hopefully the
You're
person
doing
is listening to the podcast. Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
yes, 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 yes. Like keep listening. Tell your friends.
Thank you. Thank you.
No,
I
you're
know we
doing
didn't even
such
get to
great
like
work,
talk
Jennifer.
about it, but
Yeah.
we do have like overlap with like who we serve with your She Collective. For anybody who
Hmm.
wants to work with you, who wants to know a little bit more about that, who wants to reach
Oh,
out, like share within
Yeah.
your boundaries, like all the different ways, the things that you're doing, and how people can work and get in contact with you.
Yeah, I co-run a company called She Collective with Dani Super, and you can find us at shecollective.com. We have a website. Our contact information is there. You can contact me, Erica, at she-collective.com. We offer classes for female identifying artists. We'd love for you to participate. Anybody who wants to participate can. It's a great. I'm really proud of what the work we do.
Mhm.
So please join us. Yeah,
Amazing. And if anybody
yeah.
wants to introduce themselves or sees a project that you're working on, what is the best way
Mhm.
for people to reach out in that capacity?
Yeah, email is great. It's Erica at CalleriJensenDavis.com. It's not a secret. We have a website as well,
Yeah,
so my contact information's there. So it's totally, please, you can email me if there's a project that we're working on that you're interested in. That's totally fine.
I love that
Yeah,
you don't gatekeep that contact. I just have to say that because it's
yeah,
really
it's
lovely.
yeah.
So thank
I
you on
don't. I
behalf
yeah.
of
It doesn't seem
artists.
to. It's not useful for me to
Yeah.
not.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Thank you for being a champion of actors the way that you and your office have thus far. I really mean it when I say whenever I have been in space, I do feel you all championing me and rooting for me and other folks in the space. And I really appreciate you coming in here and just opening your heart and
Hmm.
spirit and sharing. So thank you for being
Hmm.
on this podcast with us.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thanks for making this space. I just think it's great. I think what
thank
you're
you.
doing is wonderful. Yeah.
Thank you.